We can start seated. You could still have a padded surface. As I said, the practice will not be doing too much kneeling stuff. We're going to be seated, then lying back, and then coming into a flow. I'm just tilting this a little bit so I can see you. And we'll take a little bit of movement at first, and then we'll take a very short meditation. My bad is always I want to bring the meditation in, and the 1 hour I just kind of always in the end up rushing the end of it. So we're going to bring a short meditation in the middle. But in order to sit comfortably, let us first move our hips a little bit, and then move upper spine a little bit, and then come to stillness, and then into our somatic sequence. So sitting with your feet on the mat, take them a little bit wider. We'll take our good old friend windshield wiper movement through the hips. So let your pelvis freely move also along with the hips. So what that means is when I drop over to the right, I'm going to let my left bum come off the mat. And when I drop to the left, I'm going to let my right bum come off the mat. You can play with having the hands further back or sitting a little bit more upright, and then move a little bit slower. I'm realizing I'm moving pretty fast, and turn your head slowly to the opposite of the knees. And go a few more times. So experiencing hips, you're experiencing spine. See how the breath wants to go. Both is allowed, moving the knees to the side on the exhale or on an inhale. Both work. And then next time when your knees are over on the right side, let yourself pause. So notice how my left bum is off the mat. I'm going to keep my hips now, my pelvis steady, and I'm going to lift and lower the left knee. So we often do this one also on the back. And now we're doing it just from a seated position. I bring all of my attention into that left hip, and I'm only moving through a comfortable range. So when I start to feel into kind of niggly bits or any type of pinching or too much, like the stretchy sensation is too much, I'm gonna pause. I'm not gonna push beyond that. And so we'll go just a few times, feeling into mobility in that left hip. Let's go 1 or 2 more times. Nice. And then next time when the left knee lifts, lift it however far it can go, and then let it bring the pelvis along and drop the thighs over to the left. And then the same thing for the right side. So again, the pelvis stays steady. So I'm not wiggling from this part. I'm going to really feel that thigh bone as it moves in the hip socket. So my left knee, left thigh stays steady. And I move the knee up and down. You might notice one side is different from the other. Symmetry is an illusion. Our body is not symmetrical. And again, just let it be almost already part of the meditation as you feel the movement. So not just doing the movement, feel the movement. Let's go about 2 more times again. And then let's move a couple of times. So let the knee lift. Notice the end range. When it can't go anymore, let the pelvis shift and let that bring you over to the right. Then let the left knee lift. Let it slowly come to its end range, comfortable range, and then let the pelvis move and move to the opposite side. So rather than doing what we did before where the knees move together, you're going to have the top knee leading and then the pelvis and the other thigh following. And those who feel adventurous, you could take the hands off and do that movement more seated. It might start to make you kind of, it makes a little bit of a grab walk. So I'm kind of slightly shifting forward as I move. If this feels in any way it's not working for you, you could keep the hands down on the ground. Try to do the one where we're not bringing them up in unison, but I'm bringing them up one at a time. And go with just one more time to each side. All right, and then next time when the knees are pointing up, take the hands back down. If you have shuffled forward like I did, I'm going to just shuffle back. And so now rather than knees moving in the same direction, let's move them in the opposite direction. So you could have your heels on the mat, or actually at first even, heels on the mat. Bring the knees towards each other and then move them away from each other. And you can adjust how wide your heels are. If you want to, you could bring them more closer. And at first move slowly, but move rather fluidly, in a sense that I'm just going to let the knees flop. So I don't have much of a muscular tone or engagement. We're going to add that in a moment. So I move them apart, any amount, and I move them together. And then begin to press your heels down a little bit. So pushing downward through the heels. So there's tone in the muscles around the hips. It slows you down and the range might not be as far. So there's more engagement around the hips as I move. I'll do a couple of rounds like this. And then lastly, we push the heels down and I draw them as if I want to bring them towards me. So I push them down and I drag them towards me as I move. So that even more increases the tone and the muscles kind of holding and pulling the joint together. And so the movement becomes more muscular, more contained rather than fluid. And you might notice your range is also different. And just go a few more times like this. Excellent. One more time out. And then once the legs are out, take the right leg in front of the left so that you can come to seated if that is comfortable. And if you need to take a different seat, you could take a different seat. You could sit a little bit higher up. We'll take that upper body movement now. So we take the little finger side of the palms together. Many of you have done that with me before, this kind of like a mandala movement. And I'm going to try to keep the elbows and the forearms together as best as I can. If they can't be all the way together, that's fine. I'm going to try to lift the elbows while they're together as high as I can. And then when I can't anymore, I'm going to let the elbows open, the palms face forward, thumb and index finger touching like a diamond shape. Push the elbows as far back as is comfortable and then glide the arms back down. Now what I wanted to feel is do the movement feeling your shoulder blades. So when I'm bringing the arms forward with the pinky side of the arms touching, my upper back is broad. And then as I open the elbows out to the sides, my upper back, my elbows squeeze towards each other. And that's why we do the movement. So go a few more times. Letting the shoulder blades glide along the back. And then next time, let's meet when you have the hands in that kind of diamond shape up. So we meet here, and then bring the backs of the hands together and lift the arms up. So reach up, shoulders maybe squeeze up a little bit, but let your sit bones root down, and then hold onto your right wrist and draw your right arm over towards the left. Breathe into the side body. Anchor through the right hip. Take the arms back to the center and then switch. Take hold of your left wrist and then lean over to the side and breathe into the side body. Then come back through the center, press the palms up again, and then lower the hands down, circle them down. And then let's take a short moment where you walk forward any amount that is available for your hips. So you might stay quite high up, you might come lower, you might have your ankles crossed or your shin bones crossed. Many options here. Heels could be closer. Heels could be further away. See how your hips respond to that. And when you come forward, it could be a little bit like you could be more still, or it could be that there's a bit of waviness, that you move a little bit from the ribs. Just about 3 or 4 breaths. Breathing downward into the hips. Maybe a little bit of movement through the neck. Like just notice what feels best. Just to settle in stillness for a couple of breaths and let the bones be heavy. Or there's some oscillating movements that help to free up certain areas where there's some stickiness there. Let's give it 2 more breaths. And then slowly walk yourself back up. Lean the hands back behind. Bring the legs forward, straighten them forward, and just bounce them on the ground a little bit. Then flop the feet over from one side, left, right, and then flop them out and in, kind of like we did, but we did that with the feet on the mat. And then take the left leg in front of the right leg as you come back to the cross-legged seat. Let's start with the same way with the arm movement. So we're going to bring the forearms together. Let's do lifting the forearms up, opening the elbows out to the sides. Bring the backs of the hands together and reach them up so your palms are facing away. One more time, hold on to your right wrist and then lean over to the left and breathe into the right side. But then rather than just staying with the side angle, let yourself curl slightly down towards the ground, so upper back rounds, and then rotate the arms forward so they're kind of in front of your forehead, but your head is rounded downward, your spine is rounded. Press the palms away, feel that upper back area again, and then switch, hold on to the left wrist, keep rotating, keep moving over to the right side, and then open the left elbow, left side rib cage up towards the ceiling. And then do this half circle a couple of more times. So you rounding the back, letting the arms circle in front, pressing away while you're at the center, palms away so upper back is broad, and then switching the wrists and continue the circle, the half circle over to the left, opening side body. And so 1 or 2 more times, just at your own pace, feeling the insides of the rib cage. Again, the freeing up of the breath in the lungs and the shoulder area. Just like little maintenance there. Let's go 1 more time for each side. You could also just invent different movements from here. And then next time when you go through the center, press the, interlock the fingers, press the hands forward, back is rounded, and then begin to lift your chest and the arms upward towards the ceiling. Sit bones are grounded down. And then soften the elbows out to the sides, turn the palms down first, and then begin to make circles around your head and see how big you can make them. And then if it feels too much up, obviously make them smaller. But again, notice that we're doing that movement here, but what I want you to feel is shoulder blades and upper back. And then almost imagine like your ribs, when your arms move over to the right, the ribs want to move over to the left. So the ribs start to make circles, but the opposite direction. Then change the arm circle, the opposite direction. Let the ribs move. At one point, point the palms upward. Point the palms upward, different stimulation for the shoulder. Again, circle the opposite way. Let it become less a mental thing, mental activity, and just let the body find a little bit of like a hula hoop movement in the ribs. And then 1 more time, once the arms are kind of going through the center, push them up just 1 last time, sit bones down, take a breath. And then exhale, lower the arms. Ooh, shake the shoulders a little bit. And then find again a leg configuration that makes it most easeful for you to come forward, so that knees are not hurting. The sensation in the hips is such that it makes sense. You can still soften. And let's pause again for about 5-6 breaths. You can let the head drop. Breathing to the back of the lungs. Or moving your head around a little bit to release any tension from the neck. Letting the breath settle downwards, downwards, downwards towards the hips. Relaxing your jaw, relaxing your eyes. Beautiful. And then let's slowly, slowly walk up. And again, you could just let your legs slide them forward, let them bounce a little bit up and down on the ground. And then find a seat that you could hold for 5 minutes, not a super long meditation, 5 minutes of stillness. What I recommend is the hips coming maybe a little bit higher up. So if you sit and you notice your knees are higher than the hips, it might be worth it to just wiggle around a little bit to bring some elevation under the hips. If cross-legged seat doesn't work for you, you can sit also with your knees pointing forward, feet pointing back. You're at home, you could also sit on a chair. We want really the body to feel comfortable, so we can have that 5 minutes of stillness, of not doing anything, and that our mind can also stay a little bit more open and receptive and not preoccupied with the part of the body that's aching. And if it's not for you today, you could also take this moment lying down in any position that does feel comfortable. And so we feeling into the uprightness in the spine, and I wanted to play with feeling that you could lean slightly forward and back, and you find that central position where your bony structures are holding you upright, so the muscle structures can begin to soften and relax. An experiment. For some people, closing the eyes feels really comfortable and it helps that inward listening. And for others, closing the eyes might create some restlessness. So then you could just have the eyes open, slightly downcast and soft. So you're not looking at your screen, and you're also not looking around, so that the eyes, the stimulation that comes in through the eyes, we want to minimize that as much as possible, so we can be a little bit more available for our inner world. And you could start simply by feeling the ground underneath, the surface underneath, and the way the body settles. In your posture is present both the uprightness, the kind of the inspiration, our intentionality is represented by this uprightness. And then letting the softening stand in for a certain surrender, ease, sweetness, and trust. And the invitation here is to let the thinking mind drop down towards the feeling, sensing body. So The thoughts might be moving and traveling through the mind screen, and that's fine. Can that be more in the background? And you orient yourself more towards what you are sensing right now present in the body. So it could be as simple as feeling that contact to the ground, or the way your arms are resting somewhere on your lap. Or the way breath creates shapes as it moves. Let's give it another 30 seconds or so. The mind is bound to drift off. So then let it gently come and return, whatever you have chosen your anchor to be. And before we move from here, stay exactly as you are. Just notice, how did this feel? Because there's an assumption that sometimes that meditation needs to feel in a certain way, and that's not true. So whatever your experience was throughout this moment of stillness, that is valid. So can you be aware of that without any judgment? Whether it was hard or blissful doesn't matter. You're simply aware of your experience. And then gradually beginning to shift. So you're going to bring yourself towards the back end of your mat so that you can come to lie down. We'll make the lying down into a practice in and of itself. So I'll take the feet on the mat. Before lying down, I'll a couple of times round the back, so rock back on the sit bones, and then arch forward, roll forward on the sit bones and lift your chest. I'm going to invite you to have a different breath than maybe usual. So inhale when you round, when you make your back broad, inhale to that broadness that you created in the back body. And then as you rock forward on the sit bones, exhale. And then do that 2 more times, round, inhaling. Exhale when you rock forward. And just 1 more time. And then next time when you round your back, round it in such a way that you don't pull your shoulders back at first. Keep the shoulders on top of the hips and round from there. So you're creating as much of a she shape without the shoulders going back. So shoulders are on top of the hips and round. Feel that roundness in the back. Your chin is curled in. Your feet are on the mat. And then let go of your knees so that arms are reaching forward, and then begin to roll slowly downward, as slow as you can, as if you want to bring yourself down one spinal segment at a time. So keeping the core on best as you can, keeping the heels on the ground. They might slide a little bit closer. Perfect. And then at one point you're going to be on the ground, letting the arms rest out from the side, taking the feet closer. You probably need to bring them a bit closer so they're under your knees. Do a few arching and flattening to start with. So inhale, round your back away, lower back away from the ground. Front body gets broad as you exhale, press your lower back onto the ground. So rock like this, one more time, two more times, arching and flattening. Lower back arches away from the ground, inhaling. Lower back presses onto the ground, exhaling. And then let's go one more round like this. And then next time, arch the lower back away from the ground. And then as you start to press the lower back towards the ground, bring your right knee towards your chest, but just hug it in without bringing the hand in. So not arms around it, but hugging it in, curling the lower back onto the ground, emptying the breath out. And then as you begin to arch, bring the right foot slowly back down onto the ground, and then slide it all the way straight. So right leg goes straight, left foot stays on the mat. Relax the leg completely and continue arching the lower back away from the ground on the inhale and pressing the lower back onto the ground on the exhale. So go a few more times with the leg straight. So right leg is straight, left foot is still on the ground. Arching on the inhale, rounding it onto the ground on the exhale. Then go one more time like this, keeping the right leg really passive, flopping out. And then next time when the spine is moving through that midpoint between the arching and flattening, keep it there and slide your left leg straight as well. So just let it flop. So your legs are a little bit wider than the hips. And then we begin to slide the right heel upward. So the right toes are going to point a little bit down towards the ground. The right heel is going to slide up on the ground, so you're sliding on the little toe side of the foot. The knee is going to point out towards the right, so like the right leg is doing like a butterfly shape. And then you're going to slide it back straight on that little toe side, and then it relaxes. So 2 or 3 more times, a little turn of the right foot towards the ground as the heel begins to slide up. You can try different heights, you can try different trajectories as the heel slides up and slowly down. Your mind in that right hip area, inner thigh area. What can you sense there? Go one more time with this, sliding it up. And then sliding it back down. And then let's meet next time when you slide the right foot up, the heel up, sorry, keep it there, and begin to bring the right foot onto your mat, so the right knee is pointing up towards the ceiling. Have your arms out from the shoulder, so if you had them further down, especially that right arm, have it out from the shoulder. Begin to press the right foot down, lift, so the right hip lifts. The pelvis is going to rock over towards the left. Your whole body is actually rolling over towards the left. Keep your right shoulder and arm heavy. Maybe your head rolls over to the right as well. Take a breath in, and then slowly let the hips come back down onto the ground. Hit back to the center, and then drop the right knee out to the right. Slide it back straight. Slide it back straight. and relax it. Let's go one more time like this. So heel slides up, right heel still. The foot comes on to the mat, knee points up, and then begin to press the foot down. Let the body pour over. Again, that is the watery body, the fluid body connecting to that. If you know the upward roll of the arm, the right arm could curl upward to add the arm spiral. If you don't know that and that's confusing you, then you could just keep the arm heavy on the ground and then slowly let the hips come back, head come back to the center. This time, rather than dropping the knee out to the side, drop the knee inward, past the midline, so you're now on the big toe side of your right foot, and slide the leg straight, and then relax it. And then do one more. So slide the heel up while the knee is pointing out. Take the foot onto the mat, begin to press it down so you're curling over. Let your head roll to the right, the right arm could roll upward. Breath comes in, and then slowly returning everything onto the ground, dropping the right knee inward, and then sliding the right leg straight, and then having a little moment of pause when you feel that right side, the right hip. Just a couple of breaths here. And then slide both feet onto your mat. Take a couple of pelvic rock movements from here. Arch the lower back away from the ground on the inhale. Press the lower back onto the ground on the exhale. And do that 1 or 2 more times. Both on the mat. Next time when you're in that arched position, when you start to bring the lower back towards the ground, bring the left thigh with it. So you're hugging the left knee towards your chest, but not using the hands. So actively bringing the knee as close as you can, pressing the lower back onto the ground. Feel that for a moment. Relax the shoulders, relax your jaw. And then slowly begin to bring the left foot back down onto the ground. Slide it straight, so slide it on the ground as it slides all the way straight, and then let the leg flop and continue now with the lower back arching away from the ground on the inhale and the lower back pressing onto the ground on the exhale. So go a few times like this. The right foot is on the mat. Jaw is relaxed, and we're finding easeful, rocking, fluid movements. And then next time when the spine goes through that midpoint between arch and flatten, you're going to slide your left leg straight as well. Taking a little pause, right and left. Lower body, upper body, awareness of the back body, awareness of the front body. And then feeling your left leg, let the left toes point a little bit down towards the ground on the left, and begin to slide the left heel up. So same thing, first we just do the heel up and down a few times. Do it slowly. And don't forget the little pause when the leg is straight, when it almost like my leg kind of flops into place and experiences the relaxation part. Get curious about your hip, so you can try different angles, different heights for that heel. And then next time when you have the heel sliding up, take the sole of the foot onto the mat. So knees pointing up, the left foot is on the mat. Begin to press the left foot down. Press it down, reach a little bit through the left knee towards the foot side of your mat. Let the body roll over onto the right side, but keeping the left arm heavy. Maybe it rolls upward, maybe head rolls to the left, breath comes in. And then everything begins to pour back down. The weight comes back down into that left hip. Left knee drops out to the left. And then the leg slowly slides back straight. And there's a little pause where it flops. And then we go another one. The heel slides up, taking your time. Foot comes onto the mat, finding the pressure rooting down through the heel, letting the body turn and spiral over to the right. Arm spiral optional. And then as you return on this round, take your time with that. You don't have to move at my pace, but let the left knee drop now inward. So you get that inner roll of the hip while it slides straight on the big toe side. And then once the leg is straight, let it again flop. And then one more repetition like that on your own. And next time when the left leg is straight, you can pause there again, just feeling the left side of the body. Leg, hip, waist, ribs, arm. Let your mind travel, paint through the right side of the body, the leg, hip, waist, ribs, arm. And then begin to slide both of your feet up, both of your knees up onto your chest. Rock a little bit on your back from side to side. Let's do a couple of curly things, curling, not girly, but curling things. So right hand on the right knee, left hand on the left knee. Let the right knee lead as you roll over to the right. Let the left knee begin to lift first. And then it draws the pelvis along, and the momentum rocks you over to the left. Let the head follow. And then softly a few more times from side to side. The top knee leads, just like we did in the beginning. And then go one more time and pick a side where it's easy for you to come up to one side and curl up to seated, and then face whatever is the front of your mat and see if you can wiggle your way towards squatting pose. So that's going to be our transition. You're facing the top end of your mat. I'm just wiggling with my microphone. I'll meet you there. So for me, it works to take the feet wide and push onto the hands, and I can walk myself between the heels. But if that doesn't work, if you have to come to your hands and knees and then press to forward fold from there and then sit downwards, if your heels are lifted up, either you can put something underneath it, or if it's okay for you to have the heels up for a couple of more breaths, then you could do that. Just a few moments here, sensing the hips from here, and then beginning to let the hips lift. So you can come to forward fold with your feet wide apart, letting the knees bend enough so that it's not too intense for the back body line there, the hamstrings and the lower back. Just a couple of breaths here. And then we're going to step the right foot to the back of the mat. So right foot finds its way, and take the heel down. So we're taking a warrior one shape. We haven't done that for a long time. So have the right foot be a little bit over to the right. Oh, and if you do want to take your blanket away, you could. So then step the foot back forward. I'm going to just practice on the blanket, but if it feels very unstable, then take your blanket away. Place the left foot a little bit to the left, right foot a little bit to the right. Imagine there's a midline. Pause for a moment, ground the back foot down, and then begin to press down and rise up. Your hands can at first come onto the hips, so bending into that front knee. If you need to straighten it, rebend it, grounding into the back leg. And then slowly, once you're ready with the hip configuration, you could start to bring your arms upward. And then notice if you need to maybe take your arms a little bit wider. So if you feel that you bring your arms up and you're kind of pushing your ribs really high forward, try having the arms go a little bit wider so you can let the lower ribs kind of flare downwards a little bit. And then feel your feet on the ground. Front heel pressing down. Find the outer blade of the back foot. So that's the little side of the back foot. Feel the back of the neck long and soften into your eyes. Take another breath in. And then begin to lower your arms. Take the hands onto your lower back. Let your elbows kind of lift away towards the back. So squeeze the elbows towards the back end of your mat. But again, keep the lower ribs kind of moving downward. So what I want is more a stimulation through the shoulders as the elbows point back and not necessarily my ribs thrusting forward. I keep the back of the neck long and then I lean in any amount. So you could be coming forward just a little bit, or you could be leaning forward, you know, getting your belly quite close to the thighs. Feel that stimulation. Feel the core switching on. Keep the elbows lifting back so you have the backs of the shoulders active. And some of you might even lift your hands off your lower back so that again it's more action through that shoulder blade line at the back. If that feels too much, keep the hands on your lower back but keep the elbows lifted. Keep your eyes soft. Remember, you're leaning in any amount that works for you. Give it another breath in. Give it another breath out. Nice. And then slowly lower your hands down and then bring that back foot forward to the top of the mat. Soften your knees and let's curl up. So press the feet down. Keep your heads, your one head heavy, but your arms, your two arms heavy as you roll up to standing. And then when you're standing, just roll your shoulders a few times. You're going to stay at the top of the mat. I'm just going to face forward and just have a little shake through the hips. And then we're going to do this little teacher that I learned from calls it zombie roll down. We're going to add a little bounce when we're rolling downward, and that's going to help to work with our fascia in this lower back area, thoracolumbar fascia, actually through the whole back line of the body. See how that feels for you. For me, it feels like a really nice release through the back line of the body. The way we're going to curl down is let your head drop down and then touch your hand to your sternum, but I'm touching the sternum, but I'm imagining that same place in the upper back, and I'm going to try to round that upper back. So I'm curling just a little bit more down. Then touch your hand kind of above the navel or the bottom of the sternum. But again, my hand is in the front, but what I'm imagining is that same area in the spine. And so I'm going to try to curl from there as I round forward. Knees are soft. And then finally kind of touch the belly button, but again, imagine that space in your back body instead and curl downward from there. So I'm kind of midway down, my knees are soft, and then I'm going to kind of like bounce up and down. So there's an elastic recoil is one of the qualities of your fascia, and so that's the zombie thing. So I'm like a little bit like a zombie. I don't know. Maybe I find another name for it actually. So you bounce, and then you're going to turn and rotate a little bit over to your left leg as you bounce. So I'm having a bit of a side bend, different stimulation, getting into that fibers on the right side. And then I bounce over to the other side. I don't remember which I said before. Just a little bit of bouncy, soft knees. Yeah, like a recoil. Come back to the center, bounce, bounce, bounce a couple of more times. And then soften the knees even more. You can stop the bouncing as you fold in, little wiggle through the tail. And then step your left leg back. Step your left leg back. Same shape with the leg. So left leg goes a little bit to the left. Right leg goes a little bit to the right as you then press onto the ground and rise. You keep that front knee bent, or if you need to straighten and rebend it, you find the ground under the back foot. My left hip is kind of oriented forward, but I'm not trying to get it in line with the right. It's completely okay for the hips to be kind of more in a diagonal, more in an angle, but I want to find the little toe side of the back foot as I press it down, the root under my front foot, and then I'm going to find my arms. So they're going to lift, maybe they're going to open. I'm going to feel into the back of the neck, and then finding little micro movements that could bring a little bit more ease. So how can the upper back stay broad and the front of the chest stay broad? We want to feel those lower ribs just a little bit softening downward, feeling the lower back area, just kind of grounding, steadying yourself, softening the eyes perhaps. One more breath. And then the same thing, we lower the arms. You can have them resting on your lower back. Elbows are going to lift, or elbows as if you want to point them towards the back. So there's this activation of the shoulder blades, and then leaning in any amount. A little bit, pressing that front heel down, finding your legs, finding your roots, keeping that back heel rooted, front heel rooted, the belly turning down towards the ground, making sure you're not dropping your head, so back of the neck is long, elbows lift, maybe even the backs of the hands lift away from the lower back, maybe. Now, how can I steady my breath here? Lean into the fire just enough that works for you today. So it might mean that if it's too fiery, just come a little bit higher up. Let's give us just another moment here. Just one more moment here. Beautiful. And then on this round, we're going to let the hands come down, lift the back heel up. If it works for you, step to downward facing dog. If it doesn't, step to all fours and add some movement here. In downward facing dog, you could let yourself soften the knees. You could wiggle one heel down at a time. Just a few breaths, feel into your shoulders. And then today we'll just have one more flow that we make into the practice. So you could take your knees down, or you could come to plank pose for a moment, just a brief engagement of all the muscles in the body. Keep your hips at shoulder height, and then we slowly lower down onto the ground, so dropping the knees and bending the elbows back as you take your belly onto the ground. I'm going to take a Sphinx pose if there is another back bend that you really enjoy. I'm going to take my forearms down and letting the shoulders move down. Let my tops of the feet press down, feeling into that squeeze of the shoulder blades down and towards each other, and the chest lifting. Maybe move your chin around a little bit just to feel your neck. The back of the neck, the sides of the neck, soft eyes. Let's give it one more breath here. And then let the belly come down towards the ground. Slide your hands slightly back. Press yourself to all fours. Walk the hands under the shoulders. Take again the rounded shape in your back. Take a breath into that rounded shape. Inhaling into the back of the lungs, and then beginning to, on the exhale, settling the buttocks back towards the heels, letting the arms slide forward for a moment. Take a breath in. Take a slow and steady breath out. And then walk your hands back towards your heels. A few options here. You take your knees wide, and we could take our final twist from here, taking the right hand under, right ear down, left hand in front. That's an option. If the bend in the knees doesn't work for you, or this one doesn't work for the hips, see if it works from all four. So you can have your hips also on top of your knees, and then the right hand comes under. So you can be doing it also more from that tabletop position, whichever you prefer. Let's hold that for 3 or 4 breaths, one of the twists. Steadying the inhale, feeling it in the back body, in the sides of the body, in the front of the body. Softening through the jaw and the eyes. And then whichever shape you're in, slide your left hand in front of your face so you can press it down, and switch the arms. So bringing the right hand down, sliding the left hand under, left side of your head, down on the ground, and then pausing for, again, about 4 breaths. And then right hand slides back in front of your face. You press away from the ground, and then finding your ending shape from here. So you could lie down onto your back. We have about 5 minutes. You could also stay seated and make your seat again such that you can hold it still for 5 minutes. Yeah, or if there's anything else, if you're at home and close to a wall, a good ending could also be to take your legs up against the wall. The Viparita Karani position could also be one option, can be nice and restful. And I'll hold space for you. I'll guide you just a tiny bit to start with, and then I'll be silent. And if you're doing it from a recording, or even if you're not, if you're here and you know that you have a little bit more time and you would like to use that time, you could also just silence me so I don't disturb you, distract you. So whichever shape you're in, seated or lying down, or finding another way to rest. Make little adjustments so that you practice finding ease in the physical body, finding ease in your arms and legs. So notice and how they flop, and make sure that you're not holding the muscles around your hips or around your shoulders. Let yourself notice ease in the features of your face as you feel your forehead smooth and space behind the forehead. And as you feel your eyes relaxing backward into their sockets, the tiny muscles around your eyes relaxing and softening. And then see if you can experience softness, also ease also in your breath. Natural rhythm, no control. And then throughout the pause here, can again the thinking begin to dissolve into feeling, sensing, simply being. And then as you hear my voice coming in, you might actually choose to stay as you are. See if you can zone me out if you have the time for this and it feels good to just stay in stillness for a little bit longer. And if you knew that this was the time you had, just find some little movement first and find a gradual, soft way to change your shape. So if you were lying down, it might mean rolling to one side and curling up to seat. And in seated, if you are landing here, just take a little moment again to notice. In your seat, find that combination of aspiration, intention, that upward movement, combined with softness, sweetness, surrender, and trust. And then see if there is a gesture that you want to finish with. Make it your own. Might be that it's an internal gesture, you stay just seated. Might be that the hands come somewhere on the body or together. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for practicing.